So this is just a personal story from our firm. So when I joined the firm about 5 years ago, I came in originally as David's assistant. So I was like getting coffees, I was picking up lunches, and I was just trying to be a sponge and learn everything I could to help him. And primarily at that time, it was tech. The firm post COVID, like everybody else, we suddenly had to figure out e-sign, Zooms, all that, and it was a little crazy there for a minute. But David, at that time, we were going through a marketing transition, and our previous vendor owned our Google Ads account. And long story short, millions of dollars in Google Ads data we lost when we transitioned.
Oof.
And, having to start a ads account over and retroactively, you can't reach back out like, hey, actually, could we get a copy of that? It doesn't really work like that. So, experiencing that and then going into meetings with potential aspiring clients where they really don't own anything. They don't really know where their directories are managed. They don't know where their Google business pages are. They're not aware of their tag managers, their analytics accounts, their call rail accounts, even. All that data in this era of AI is how you're able to then capture and build upon what's functioned and worked inside your firm. I jokingly say it's like your operating memory. Like you have vendors who are extensions of you, and you have outcomes that you get to absorb. But the how is in this era of AI is how you can, internalize some of those resources and leverage AI yourself, and not have that gap. But if you don't have the data, that's not an option for you. And that's where, when I meet with firm owners and I find out that they have 70% of their stuff they're not really aware, they don't even know, and even their in-house marketers don't know, makes me panic because I'm just like, you don't know what you're dealing with here.
Yeah, and at a minimum, just being aware that
Yes.
I need to have the access to all of these items, and knowing that somebody has it, is it's better than most. When I was in house, one of the first things I did was I audited everything that we had working with anybody externally. I want to own everything, and we spent millions and millions of dollars every single year. Um, and with one of the vendors, it was, well, we don't really do it like that. I'm like, well, we are going to do
We
it
do.
like that,
Yeah.
right? Like we're going to do it like that now. Otherwise, like I'm going to have to start finding other solutions. And so they were like, okay, no, absolutely, we'll do it that way, right? Like I'm not looking to get in there and kick y'all out. I'm looking to get in there and just make sure that the firm has ownership of the things that they need, that we have access to, and everything's transparent as possible. Um, and so, I think not every agency out there is gonna do that, right? But if you spend the most enough, a lot of them will make some concessions. And I'm a big advocate of that transparency. I
Yeah.
want them to have access to everything. I want them to be able to look at it whenever they want, if they decide they want to. Because if ultimately if they don't, then there's probably a little less trust there,
Yeah.
because it is black boxed a little bit. And when they do decide when they do decide to shop around, I have no idea, because because they're no one has their
No one
team
has
doesn't have
access.
access to it, right? And
Yeah.
so it's a it could be a catch-22 for some agencies, but I'm a big advocate of just I want the firms to be as knowledgeable and equipped as possible to uh, to know what's going on with their law firm, with the marketing, um, because I want them to look at me as a true partner, right?
Oh, for sure. And I think most agencies, especially the really good ones, they're excited when you bring up these questions. When you start asking these
Yeah,
types of questions, like, okay, someone internally now can start closing some loops for us too. And I mean, I'm speaking from experience. A lot of our growth comes in working with an agency. I like to tell people, sure, I have a horror story about one, but David Meyer, he's the investor protector. We get hundreds of calls every single month from people who've been defrauded by brokers and advisors. But every single one of us here has a broker and advisor because it's same way if you work in the emergency department, you probably think your kid should never go to a park ever. Where there's very much an experience where because of the sample size, you can give you an idea that you should never do that. But I think the best agencies get excited, and a lot of our growth has come from working with our agency for how to integrate our strategy and use them as a true extension of us. And I think that gray area of a lot of law firms thinking it's the agency's job, the agency kind of being like, we can't do everything, is
yeah,
where that friction comes in. But if you're replacing your agency every year, you're never going to make any momentum or progress because you don't have consistency either. And that's where I think a lot of firms end up in a cyclical cycle of they're both not committing themselves or investing the equal resources that the agency can, so that the both can meet in the middle and find success together.
And it's crazy the makeup of so many different law firms, right? And they're going to be completely different because they're different sizes, different practice areas, different interests, right? Some of them just don't want to be involved in any of the marketing ever,
Yeah.
right? And they're okay with being in a black box because they're just like, as long as the results are happening, fine, right? And if they're not, we're going to go somewhere else. Um, from the agency standpoint, very much when there is someone internally who is owning it from the bringing everything together, it's better for every agency you work with. And that was one of the conversations when I was in house that I had, even when I was talking about the agency, a couple of agencies I was working with. It was, if they're good at what they do, they're just going to be better now that I'm here,
Yeah.
right? Because they're going to have more direction. They're going to have more access into what's really happening behind the scenes. They're going to know what I'll hold valuable, what I don't, because they will never have full access to the complete nuance of all the clients coming in and what's happening in intake and what's happening in legal ops and in operations, because they can't, right? It's just that
Yeah.
they're a separate business, no matter how much you integrate your agency in. But we do work with some firms that, we are their marketing department and their marketing agency. Um, but trust has to come with that in
Yeah.
order for that to happen, right? Um,
And I think to your point, like that bridge is so important of
Mhm.
being able to bridge what's going on inside of the firm with what the agency is doing and marrying those things together, because one side knows the outcomes and the other side kind of is implementing strategy. So the bridge is really important. One of the
It's
biggest things we felt like helped us was providing like a neutral place to share data, even to where, to your point, I'm not giving any agency access to my CRM. And if that's
Mhm.
my system of truth, how can I provide them that access? It's one of the reasons why we made a data lake as a neutral place to be like, hey, here's your data vendor. Here's your data vendor. You can see how many of these we're turning down, why, our disqualification reasons, and that can help inform either your ad strategy, your SEO strategy, and it just goes a long way in helping produce better results for everyone.
Yeah, and ultimately, what I'm hearing there is a very clear, here is your metrics, and here's how I'm judging you, and so make sure that you're operating through that lens. And
Yeah.
whether the agency or the vendor or the third party partner agrees with that or not, they know that's how they're being judged. Right? And if they don't agree with it, you can have those conversations. I've had many of those conversations where it's like, well, maybe we shouldn't be judged off of that thing because here's some of the, for me, that's the advantage of having been in house too, because I'm still always thinking from that in house standpoint, because I had to do what you did, right? I had to
Yeah.
share lots of data in a way that made sense, vendor by vendor, client, agency by agency, and there were lead gen vendors, there were true agency vendors, there were freelancers. There's a
There's
lot
a lot
to
of
bring
coordination.
together all in one place to try to go up and to the right.
I do think one of the most difficult parts for me is also making sure like what matters to us when I'm working with the marketing vendor and what is important to strategy is not what the firm owners are necessarily worried about. So like to your point, it's like translating the marketing results that like we care about, the firm owners don't necessarily care that much about. And then also simultaneously the things the firm owner wants me to pass down, maybe sometimes not, letting it distract away from the good things that we got moving
Yeah,
on the marketing
you
side.
have to be a buffer, right?
Yeah, $100%.
You don't always want you don't want the team to be stressed out by the owner's stress, because
Yeah.
the owner's going to be stressed in a different way because it's their operation. And if they're anything like me, I I had the tendency to operate under the world is always burning. You-
Yeah.
Things are going up and to the right, and I'm still like, but what if?